I'm Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. Anna's got her smart glasses on. She is, in fact, a professor. Okay, we have a number of stories for you that make my blood boil, and I will make other people's blood boil with comments I have about them, including the hurricane, which we're going to start with in a little bit. I'm told that my opinions are outrageous and unacceptable, and I will share them with you. And then, okay. Sheriff Arpaio, one of the most racist guys in the country, but actually race is the least of his problems in terms of the pardon. I'm going to tell you that that's the tip of the iceberg and what that could lead next with Donald Trump. And then in the second hour, I have to confess to being obsessed with the Taylor Swift story.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so now some of you might think, oh, well, pop culture, I don't care about that. Well, number one, you're wrong, because it drives so much of what winds up being our overall culture in the country. And then second of all, I think that story is wonderfully, fascinatingly controversial, okay? And so I can't wait to adjudicate it. I can't wait to see what you think and what Brett thinks. That's in the second hour. Having said all that, Casper, go.
All right. Hurricane Harvey has led to such severe flooding in the Houston, Texas area that now people are measuring the rainfall not by inches, but by feet. Thousands, tens of thousands of people have been displaced, and unfortunately there have been fatalities reported. The number of fatalities are expected to rise as the story develops. Officials in Texas said Monday afternoon that at least 8 people appear to have died as a result of the storm battering the state. Now, as of those who have been displaced, officials are warning that the flooding would linger, and they're saying that more than 30,000 people would be forced from their homes. Shelters are at capacity. People are unfortunately being turned away as a result. 2 reservoirs were opened to release water to relieve the stress the downpour has caused in the region, which has seen as much rain in a few days as it averages in an entire year. That's according to reporting from the Washington Post. Now, just to give you some idea of how heavy the rainfall has been, parts of Harris County, which also includes Houston, were pelted with 30 inches of rain in the last 72 hours. And as a result, firefighters have had to respond to more than 4,000 water-related calls for service. Police rescued 2,000 people in the city, and another 185 critical rescue requests were still pending. So it's been incredibly serious, and a 59-foot river level threatens to overtop many of the levees in our area. It exceeds the design specifications of our levees. That's according to a judge, Robert Herbert, who lives in the area. So of course, as always, when these types of stories develop, there are questions about the infrastructure and whether or not it can withstand this type of storm. And so, obviously our infrastructure does need a lot of help. It's a devastating storm, a devastating story, and now the governor of Louisiana is asking Trump to call a state of emergency for the state of Louisiana because the storm is moving out of Texas into other states. Trump has called for a state of emergency in Louisiana as well. Okay,
so let's talk about the ramifications of this and why this happened in the first place. So if you're one of those snowflakes who is going to get triggered when I say this has to do with climate change, go ahead and cry right now. If you're gonna say it's too soon, I'm gonna say it's too late. It's not too soon to talk about climate change. We should have talked about it a long time ago so the storms wouldn't be this severe. If you are a knucklehead who doesn't understand science and you say, oh, well, we used to have storms before, that doesn't answer anything. The question is, how severe are the storms? So to give you a sense of what's going on here, the Brazos River, the previous record, not the average, the previous record for how high the river was 54.7 feet. In this case, it became 59 feet, 5 feet higher. Obviously you can tell, about 5 feet higher than it has ever been. So there are 2 things that contribute to making these storms more severe because of climate change. There's actually a couple of others as well, but the 2 major ones are sea levels in the Houston region have risen by more than half a foot over the last couple of decades because the scientists told you the sea levels were rising, but you didn't believe them. What happens when sea levels rise? Floods, massive, unprecedented. Now they're calling this a 500-year flood. No, it's a 1-year flood. You'll have another flood just like it next year. You had one like it just the year before in Louisiana. Now Louisiana is going to get hit again. You keep calling it a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. The scientists predicted it ahead of time, and it's now happening. The second contributing factor is temperatures. So when the temperatures in the region go up by 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which they have, that roughly equals 3 to 5% more moisture in there. Hey, look at that, more moisture in the air, and you have these sustained, unstoppable storms that just keep raining and raining until we have historic floods. Is this, at a minimum, partly due to climate change? Absolutely. This is what climate change looks like. It's not that storms didn't exist before, of course they did. It's that it makes the storms more severe. And here you have a storm that is way more severe. I'll add one more thing. Now there's talk of rescues and assistance, and as well there should be, and there are some gross hypocrites like Senator Ted Cruz from the state of Texas, who when Hurricane Sandy hit the New York, New Jersey region, said we should not help those people. Now he's going around saying, oh, we need help, we need help. Of course you need help, and so do the people in New York and New Jersey did. So we work together as a community and we stand up for each other. So of course we should be helping the people in Houston. But what we should not be doing is giving $1 in assistance to the oil companies that are now crying about how, oh my God, we're gonna lose billions of dollars. Good. You're the ones who created this mess in the first place. You're the reason why we have the massive severe storm that we did and the human toll that it took and all the damage that it causes the whole wide world. And the one time it hits you, you are not getting subsidies. So they're why do you think Ted Cruz is out there? Partly to get votes, I understand that. The other reason is, count down with me. I guarantee it, and we'll show it to you on the show. He's gonna ask for subsidies for the oil companies that started this mess in the first place.
So Mike Pence was already asked about the oil companies and how they're suffering as a result of the storm. And he said, look, our #1 priority at the moment is to make sure that we save lives and we ensure that everyone is safe. However, after that, there will be talk about providing loans to, he said, small businesses that have been hurt in the area.
That is their #1 code word for big business. When they say small business, we track it. The money goes a little bit to small business, but the lion's share always goes to gigantic multinational corporations. ExxonMobil had refineries down there. ExxonMobil is not a small business. You want to help a local guy who's running a market in Houston? I'm right there with you. That's the point of government. We stick together. We help actual human beings. You want to help ExxonMobil? That over 40 years ago, this is a story that just came out at the end of last week. Over 40 years ago, had conclusive evidence that climate change was happening and it would lead to catastrophic storms. So when one of those storms finally hits an ExxonMobil oil refinery, no, we are not going to help. Those guys have been causing this damage and making all of us pay the cost all across the world. Did they chip in? No, they took all the profits home. When it hits them, let me just say I'm not sad about it. And under no condition should you take hard-earned US taxpayer dollars and give it to ExxonMobil, who created this mess.
So we will fill you in on the story as it develops. As I mentioned earlier on, more fatalities are expected, and the storm is now traveling to other states as well. But I do want to talk a little bit about the reaction to this storm and the response by the federal government, because that is incredibly important. So let's move to that. The federal government has responded to Hurricane Harvey, and they've done it swiftly. And to be quite honest with you, they have allocated the necessary resources to ensure that lives are saved and people are rescued. So first, I want to make a point about Mike Pence versus Donald Trump. Mike Pence seems to be taking the situation very seriously, as he should. In fact, the White House announced that Trump will visit Texas, but he'll do so tomorrow on Tuesday. Mike Pence said the following: I know the president and the first lady have been very anxious to come to the area to see firsthand the efforts that are underway. He's deployed the full resources of the national government. People can just be confident that as we move through this rescue operation, that that we're there for the long haul. We're there for the long haul with Texas through this recovery effort, but now is the time to focus on life-saving efforts. Also, Donald Trump tweeted about the storm, and the tweets seemed almost a little celebratory and self-congratulating, and they were met with criticism. Let me share them with you. He said, wonderful coordination between federal, state, and local governments in the great state of Texas. Teamwork, record-setting rainfall. Okay, he also continued to say, wow, now experts are calling Harvey a once-in-a-500-year flood. We have an all-out effort going and going well. Finally, he says historic rainfall in Houston and all over Texas. Floods are unprecedented. He spelled precedented right, wow. And more rain coming. Spirit of the people is incredible, thanks. So look, the resources from the government have been allocated to Texas as they should be. However, Christina Wilkie, who's an investigative reporter, tweeted out something that I thought was a little interesting. I wanted to share it with you guys. So Mike Pence was in the Situation Room working with officials in regard to the response to this storm. And for some reason, Donald Trump wasn't there. He was at Camp David. So there's the tweet in question. Now, Donald Trump was also tweeting about NAFTA in between tweeting about what was happening with Hurricane Harvey. He was complaining that Canada and Mexico have been extremely difficult in the negotiations over NAFTA. And then he says that he might terminate any agreement with them. Whatever, but Mike Pence seems to be taking it a little more seriously than Trump, and Trump was also asked about the situation in Texas, and here's what his response was. Take a look.
Okay, so look, I have different reactions to different parts of the story. First off, on the government reaction, I don't have enough information yet to be able to say what went right and what went wrong. So we obviously know that 8 lives have been lost, 30,000 are stranded, and there's been some great stories about how there's been rescue efforts, some of them led by governments, including local, state, and federal, and then there's been great acts of kindness all over Houston. So I think the jury's out on that, both for good and bad, so I'm gonna leave that be for now. In terms of the Trump at Camp David by himself, look, more than anything else, it's symbolic. It's a president who's isolated, not part of the decision making. Now, I know what people will say. They'll say, no, I mean, he's dialing it in. He's literally phoning it in, and he's part of the process. But he's just so obsessed with every weekend he has to get away. Every weekend he's got to go to Mar-a-Lago or his golf course in New Jersey or wherever. And so he's on yet another retreat. He's all by himself. Everybody else is taking this super seriously. I mean, he doesn't have enough sense that even on the optics, hey, maybe I should have my sleeves rolled up and be in the Situation Room.
That's right. Exactly, I completely agree with you. Now, in terms of what I know the federal government has done so far, there are about 5,000 FEMA employees on the ground in Texas trying to help out, which is great. The National Guard is involved. So based on what we know now, it seems as though the federal government is taking it seriously and they are allocating the appropriate resources to respond to the situation. However, responding is one thing. But what we're doing right now is we are putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. As Cenk had mentioned earlier in the show, these extreme weather conditions are becoming more and more common. We're seeing them every single year. And so at this point, you would think that we would have appropriate, methods or strategies in place to mitigate these situations before it happens. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we do. So just to give you an example, after the terrible situation occurred in Charlottesville, President Trump decided to give a speech on how he plans on improving infrastructure. During that speech, there was a tiny little component of it that I think a lot of people missed. And luckily, Jonathan Larson, who is the TYT news editor, brought it to my attention. So Obama in 2015 had signed an executive order known as the Federal Flood Risk Management Standard. And it essentially indicates that any type of government, federal government infrastructure project or building project would have to meet certain standards to help prevent severe damage due to severe flooding. Well, Donald Trump decided to come in and say, nah, I don't like it. He wants to scrap it. So the Obama-era rule, let's go to graphic 39A. The Obama-era rule gave federal agencies 3 options to flood-proof new infrastructure projects. They could use the best available climate change science. They could require that standard projects like roads and railways be built 2 feet above the national 100-year flood elevation standard, and critical buildings like hospitals be built 3 feet higher, obviously because of raising water levels, right? Or they could require infrastructure to be built to at least the 500-year flood plan. The order did not regulate private development. But Republicans kept complaining about it. Oh my God, this is gonna hurt businesses. This is gonna be too expensive. Well, what do you wanna do? Because right now we have rising sea levels. We have extreme weather conditions. We're not doing anything about climate change. We just pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. And so we're gonna have more and more of these floods. And so how does it make any sense to scrap this executive order by Obama? The only reason why Trump wanted to do it is because he just wants to do the opposite of anything Obama did. No rhyme, no reason, no logic.
So there's a couple of elements to this. Number one, Republicans always complain about regulation. Well, that's regulation. You know why? When another piece of regulation is in areas prone to earthquakes, like in California, you make the buildings to the best of your ability earthquake proof so that they don't immediately crumble when you get hit with an earthquake. And you make them be able to withstand stronger and stronger earthquakes. Now, if you don't have that regulation in place, earthquakes will hit and thousands of people will lose their lives when the buildings crumble. In this case, in areas that flood, you need these kind of regulations. So when they say, oh, we're against regulations, that means I'm not thinking. And the rule that Trump passed was for every new regulation that's passed, you have to take away 2 regulations. Think about how blindingly stupid that is. I'm not going to consider what the regulation is. I'm not going to look at, hey, does that one make sense? Does that one not make sense? How much does it cost? What is the benefit? I'm just against it. Against what? It depends on the specifics. So we don't yet know whether the government did enough after the storm. But what the entire rest of the media is missing is what the government didn't do enough before the storm. Whether it's regulations like that or fighting climate change in the first place. So this administration has done nothing to help the people of Houston avoid this mess in the first place. So we have William Brock Long, who's an administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. He said, quote, "We have not seen an event like this. You could not draw this forecast up. You could not dream this forecast up." That's actually not true. Scientists have been telling you for decades now that exactly these kind of severe storms would happen. And when they did, Republicans came in, and yes, they are Republicans who are guilty. Let's not mince words. The mainstream media won't tell you that. No, I can't tell. One side is against doing something about climate change. The other side wants to do something. This one is clear. Some issues are not clear. This one is absolutely clear. So when severe storms hit, it is Republicans that are at fault for blocking any action on climate change. So the scientists told you this would happen, and what did Republicans do? They brought in snowballs to the Senate and said, oh, it still snows, let's not do anything. Well, you don't do anything, and then you get storms like this. So the good people of Houston, we're going to try to help you because we actually believe in working together. We think that's the whole point of government. That doesn't mean that government can't do anything wrong. We think government does a lot of things wrong. One of the things they did wrong was they left you out there all by yourself. They didn't do any action ahead of time to make sure the storms didn't get this severe. And that was Republicans who did that. So know who caused this to you. Anyone who tells you otherwise is just, they're abdicating their responsibility. They'll say we're biased. No, those are facts. That is science. So when you call it neutral, oh, I can't tell, was it Republicans or Democrats? Well, you're not a journalist. You're a neutral, Pravda reading news actor whose job is to say, oh, I don't know the news. I don't know facts. I don't know science. Gee, which side wanted to do something about climate change? Which side didn't? I can't figure it out. If you can't figure it out, you shouldn't work in news. We know what went wrong here. And by the way, Abbott added one last thing that was weird. He's the governor of Texas, and I got no love for him. He's in the same exact boat as other Republicans. But as Trump is going to come visit somewhere way away from Houston, legitimate point about, hey, we don't want him to interfere in the research operation is a big deal when the president comes in and a lot of preparation. That's totally fair. He also had, I didn't say this, Abbott said it. He also said that he will not be getting into harm's way. So make sure that, I mean, it's raining out in Houston. So look, he doesn't live in those homes. The homes already got flooded and they're gonna get flooded worse. There's no harm that Trump could get into, but just be careful. Donald doesn't want to get into harm's way. For God's sake, at least go to the Situation Room. At least pretend to get involved.
All right, we got to take a break. Let's do that. And when we come back, some details on Trump's decision to pardon Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Well, you thought I was angry in the last segment. Wait till you get a load of me in the next one.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're gonna help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us.
Whoa, democracy.
United. We are. We are. Too strong.
There's thousands of volunteers, and you could be among them.
With Wolfpack, the mission is so clear.
Money is killing our democracy.
96% of Americans want it.
When you get the power back, oh, that feels good.
This is just the beginning.
Let's go get them, man. Up and at them. Knock, knock.
We're coming for them.
Wolf-pack.com.
Complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
You said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
Now you guys are gonna think, especially my early behind the scenes footage, like I already went and looked at the comments in the member section. You guys, oh, he's high, he's drunk. I swear to you, I'm not. Well, I just tell you if I am, right? And so I get goofy in the behind the scenes stuff.
What's the need for the butter with this pretzel? This is already super fattening it up. You don't need to put butter on this thing. Why'd they make me do it, Bitsy? Why'd they make me do it?
Hey, I'm just saying that this is known as the rear end guy. There's no way that every person he knows doesn't call him the rear end guy. I want you guys to see if you could see the lightning bugs. Whoa. Light them up. Light them up.
Is it true, Ritzy? I will now watch it later.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. Imagine him, isn't it? Hey, Kiki Cat. Kiki Cat. All right, this is Kiki Cat signing out.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you. I'm going to read one comment from YouTube Super Chat. That must have been from the end of last week, but I like it. MK Homero writes in, we saw the post game, or I saw the post game. Anna, stay strong, you rock.
Aw.
And Cenk, you're awesome to stay loyal to the TYT crew. Why, thank you. Hashtag, nevertheless, Anna persisted. Hashtag Cenk Bane.
All right, okay.
All right, thank you. You can see the post games by becoming a member at tytnetwork.com/join. Now, let's go to Commander and Gift tweets today. Privatize the profit, socialize the loss. That's what we talk about here. That's what the oil companies are doing. Ryland Dawson says, love the fire, Cenk. Oil companies got us into this mess, and as always, it's up to progressives to get us out. Dylan Lochner writes in, my dad's a firefighter from here in Sacramento and on his way to Houston, hoping he helps people, but also hoping he stays safe. See, that's what I love. So in hard times like this, when we all band together and guys from Sacramento are going to help their fellow Americans in Houston, that's wonderful to hear.
Just real quick, we didn't get a chance to really talk about it in the main story, but there was a woman who went into labor in the middle of the storm, and she couldn't get to the hospital. She couldn't even get out of her home because of the fact that it was so flooded. And so a private citizen showed up with his truck, or two private citizens, dudes, showed up with their truck. They tried to get her to the hospital, but because of flooding, they couldn't do that. And so they somehow managed to get her to a hotel. The hotel was like freaking out. They called 911. They didn't get a response for about 10 minutes. Finally, they did. They're like, how far apart are the contractions? They said 8 minutes apart. Give us a call back when the contractions are closer. I mean, how devastating and scary is that? And then finally, when they called back, they couldn't get the help that they needed, but somehow miraculously, people showed up in a giant dump truck and put her in the dump truck and got her to the hospital so she could deliver the baby. I mean, insane.
It was government guys coming in the dump truck, and they needed that obviously to make sure that they were above water. That's a great story. Michael Bento writes in, Trump going to Camp David and Pence taking the lead on Harvey in Situation Room is GOP preparing for his ousting. I don't know about that, but Norma GP writes in, Cenk, you're telling the inconvenient truth about climate change. Good job. Thank you, Norma. All right, what's next?
All right. On Friday at 8 p.m., Donald Trump decided to send a press release to reporters indicating that he has pardoned Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Now, Sheriff Joe Arpaio was found guilty by a federal judge of federal criminal contempt of court. And that's because of the racial profiling that went on in his department in Maricopa County, Arizona. Now, Donald Trump had hinted that he planned on pardoning him, and he has done so. In a tweet, Trump wrote, I am pleased to inform you that I have just granted a full pardon to 85-year-old American patriot Sheriff Joe Arpaio. He kept Arizona safe. He did not keep Arizona safe. In fact, there were a lot of pretty terrible things that he did to individuals who weren't white simply because of the way they looked. Racial profiling happened to be one of them. A federal judge ruled in July that Arpaio had defied a court order to stop profiling Latinos for detention based solely on suspicions about their immigration status. So cops would just stop Latinos that they suspected of being in the country illegally and start harassing them, which you can't do. By law, you can't do. And so a court let Arpaio know that he can't do that, and he continued to do that, which is why he was found guilty of criminal contempt of court.
Can I just, sorry, Anna, let me just jump in there for a second, because I want to clarify something that's really important. So yes, there's the racial angle here, which is that he did not go after undocumented people in particular. He went after all Latinos. The Justice Department said he oversaw, this is a quote, oversaw the worst pattern of racial profiling by a law enforcement agency in United States history. So that is incredible. But I think even more important is the court told him, hey, listen, You're going after people for federal issues, not for county issues, but for federal issues, which is immigration. That's not your job, don't do that. That's part one. So you have no business doing that. Number two, in order to go after people, in our system of government, you need some sort of suspicion, either a probable cause or reasonable suspicion to even investigate them. You need any kind of evidence that they did something wrong. But you're not doing that. What you're doing is you're going into Latino communities and rounding people up, even though you have no suspicion of them and you have no evidence. That is as unconstitutional as it gets. That's as un-American as it gets.
It's against the law. It's against the law. And the person who decided to pardon him was the same individual who said over and over again on the campaign trail that he was in favor of law and order. In fact, let's take a look at what Trump had to say during his RNC speech.
In this race for the White House, I am the law and order candidate.
So I hate Republican marketing. Well, the only thing I can't stand more is that the Democrats are so incompetent they can't counter it. He is not for law and order. So when you don't listen to our court system and you reward that, you say, okay, this guy didn't listen to the judges, he didn't listen to the law, even though he was supposed to be executing the law. And you say, congratulations. As long as you hate Latinos and illegally round them up, I don't care about the rule of law. And you know what? I'm not going to follow the regular pardon procedure. Yes, Trump has the ability to pardon people, but there's a procedure that you normally go through. No, I'm not going to follow the procedure. I'm not going to go to the Justice Department. I'm not going to make him apologize. I'm not going to make him do anything because what Trump just declared is, as long as you're a political ally of mine, you're above the law.
Right, and keep in mind that historically when pardons happen, it's because that individual has some sort of redeeming quality, right? And in this case, I don't really know what the redeeming quality is. He hasn't explained it. And so even though he has been convicted of a federal crime, he doesn't have to deal with the same, treatment that convicted felons have to deal with. So for instance, Arpaio says that now he's considering running for office. And I was like, you're federally convicted, you're a convict, can you do that? And you can, if you've been pardoned by the president, you can run for office. And so he says he's planning it, we'll see what happens. But again, the racial profiling is just the tip of the iceberg. In fact, the fine people at Maricopa County have paid tens of millions of dollars in fighting or paying for Sheriff Joe's legal fees, so keep that in mind. Also, let's go to graphic 23. He also infamously jailed hundreds of inmates in an open air facility known as Tent City under the intense Arizona sun. So he purposely made it an open air facility. In 2008, documentary filmmakers actually recorded him calling it a concentration camp. So he was super proud of himself. By the way, these are people who are detained because they're suspected of being undocumented immigrants, right? So in a lot of cases, they haven't even had their day in court yet, but it doesn't matter. They deserve to be in concentration camps. Also, Mr. Arpaio was found guilty of criminal contempt for continuing to illegally profile Latinos living in Arizona based on their perceived immigration status in violation of a judge's order. The president has the authority to make this pardon, but doing so at this time undermines his claim for the respect of rule of law, as Mr. Arpaio has shown no remorse for his actions. That's not something a reporter said, that's something that a Republican lawmaker said. That was a statement from Senator John McCain from Arizona. So
yeah, so now why is he doing this? One, he never cared about the rule of law. I mean, he's been trying to obstruct justice from day one on the Russian investigations about his team to begin with, which leads us to the real reason he did this. Yeah, he likes Arpaio. So when Arpaio brags about concentration camps for Latinos, some of whom are perfectly innocent and none of which he had evidence on to begin with, okay? Trump doesn't see that as the bug, he sees that as a feature. He's like, bravo, but that's not what this is about. The main reason Trump is doing this, he's testing his limits. He's like, well, if I can pardon a political ally like Arpaio and there's no consequence, well then, if Mike Flynn is going to turn evidence against me for my campaign and my administration, and Paul Manafort, my former campaign manager, if they say to him, hey, you must answer to Congress, otherwise you're in contempt of Congress, or you must answer a subpoena or you're in contempt of court, he's telling Manafort and Flynn, it's okay, I'm going to pardon you. I just did a pardon of Arpaio, another political ally who was in contempt of court. That's okay. Be in contempt of court. Block the investigation. So, look, if he pardons anyone from his own campaign or his own administration, it is definitively grounds for impeachment. That is obvious obstruction of justice. If you don't stop him there, then we become a totally lawless country. Then he could commit crimes, pardon himself. His administration members can commit crimes, pardon themselves. And they go, oh, you can't collect evidence because we won't give it to you. Well, you're in contempt of court, don't care, pardon. So if we don't act now, we lose our democracy. It's not an overstatement. This is exactly how dictators begin. This is exactly how fascism begins, where a strong man comes in and says, I'm not gonna follow the law, and I don't care what judges say. I'm above judges. And that's just not the case. That's not our system of government. And if we allow it to be our system of government, he will continue to abuse it. So I don't know if the Republicans have it in them to say, well, this is the line in the sand. If you pardon anyone related to investigations of your administration or your campaign, we will go for impeachment. And if they don't, they should all be voted out. Otherwise, we're not gonna have laws in this country. We're gonna have strong men who don't believe in our democracy.
All right.
One last thing, guys. So one last thing on Sheriff Joe Arpaio. He got the pardon from Trump, and he wants to give credit to someone. You know who he gave credit to? Alex Jones. So on Wednesday, he said he thanked Alex Jones for bringing the case to Trump's attention, and he said otherwise Trump wouldn't have heard about it. Now it's perfectly possible that that's true. Trump had gone on Alex Jones' show during the campaign in December 2015. He said about Jones, quote, "Your reputation is amazing. I won't let you down." Alex Jones claims that he has talked to Donald Trump since he has become president. And we know that right-wing outlets, whether they are insane or not insane, have some of their stuff printed out and put in front of the president in files so he can look at them and make decisions based on right-wing conspiracy theories. So I wanna, look, if you've never heard of Alex Jones, God bless your heart. If you have, and you haven't, all you've seen is some of the conspiracy theories or that he's generally against the government, you might not know how crazy he is. Now, a lot of people by now know that he thinks that there's something in the water that turns the frogs gay. Okay, he thinks that there are aliens and satanic forces on Earth and that they're secretly controlling us. He thinks the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are gonna kill 90% of all human beings on the planet. And you might have heard about Sandy Hook and how he thinks that was a false flag operation. This is the insane lunatic that Arpaio says, yes, thank God the president listens to this lunatic. I don't know if you heard one of the more recent ones. Alex Jones said that there are humanoids, quote, humanoids, and they are, quote, like 80% gorilla and 80% pig, and they're talking. So the president is listening to a guy who thinks there are humanoids that are 80% gorilla and 80% pig, do the math on that one, and that those are 160% bear pigs are talking humanoids.
I'm sure he has some sort of product that he can sell us that can prevent us or keep us safe from these gorilla pigs that are running around.
Sorry, not bear pigs, gorilla pigs. I just want to be fair and honest, Alex Jones. These are the lunatics running our country and breaking our laws and now getting away with it. Who is Alex Jones gonna want to pardon next? And well, maybe the gorilla pigs, maybe they need pardons. So Donald Trump might look into that next. These are the guys that are in charge. God help us all.
All right, moving on to some other news that is unfortunately just as devastating. Donald Trump plans to revive a program that provides local law enforcement with militarized weapons. Now, this was something that President Obama decided to rein in when he realized that local police forces were heavily militarized and it was leading to problems within communities throughout the country. However, Trump believes that reviving this program is just a great idea. So let me give you the details on that. He will revive a program that provides local police departments with surplus military equipment, such as high caliber weapons and grenade launchers. Trump plans to sign an executive order doing this, and it will undo an Obama administration directive that limited police agencies' access to camouflage uniforms, bulletproof vests, riot shields, firearms, ammunition, and other items. Now, the Trump administration is arguing, and police unions are arguing, that the cops need these militarized weapons because of the threat of terrorism. They want to make sure that they keep themselves and their communities safe. But in reality, these militarized weapons have been used for things like drug raids. They've been used at protests that they apparently don't like. And so it leads to a lot of distrust toward the police. It's led to a lot of problems, which is why the Obama administration decided to rein this program in. President Barack Obama issued the executive order back in 2015 that severely limited the surplus program, partly triggered by public outrage over the use of military gear during protests in Ferguson, Missouri. Police responded in riot gear and deployed tear gas, dogs, and armored vehicles. At times, they also pointed assault rifles at protesters.
Now, to be fair, they did the same thing to the Nazis in Charlottesville. Oh, no, right, they didn't. That's weird. When Nazis came into town and committed gross acts of violence, not only running over and killing Heather Heyer, but also beating a black man in a garage, 10 staples in his head. Also a guy firing his weapon who's a Grand Wizard of the KKK. But no armored vehicles and no military outfits there. But in Ferguson, it was black people who were protesting being shot and killed by the police. Wait a minute, time to bring out the tanks. So I wonder if this has been used disproportionately. But I want to give you context that's very important. The list that Anna read you are stuff that Obama said the police can continue to get from the military. So yes, camouflage uniforms, yes, bulletproof vests, riot shields, firearms, ammunition, all those things you can still get under Obama's order.
Just limited.
Yes. Now, what you can't get is grenade launchers, bayonets. What on God's green earth are we using bayonets for?
The terrorists, though.
Okay.
The terrorists are coming, so we need bayonets.
Armored vehicles, weaponized aircraft and vehicles, firearms and ammunition of 50 caliber or greater to the police forces. Okay. So, look, we might need bullets that strong to, rip apart our opponents on the battlefield, and maybe you're firing over a great distance and you're trying to hit the Taliban on the other side of the mountains of Kandahar. Okay, we don't need it in St. Louis. We don't need it in the middle of Iowa. We don't need it in the middle of New Mexico. And okay, put the bullets aside. So maybe, oh man, if there's protesters we really don't like, we should shred them like they're the Taliban. Okay, maybe you're in that camp. Grenade launchers? So, and you think, well, that's okay. They probably didn't ask for the grenade launchers. That's ridiculous, right? Wrong, they did ask for the grenade launchers. In fact, because of Obama's program, they brought back from the police 100 grenade launchers that had gone out to cops all over the country and 1,600 bayonets. Now, one of the reasons that Jeff Sessions gave for reversing this Obama order is, well, it'll help improve police morale. So it'll give them nice toys to play with. The cops like to play with tanks and bayonets and grenade launchers. That'll help their morale. Really, where's the circumstance, other than the Nazis in Charlottesville where we didn't use it, where you need any of this stuff? In fact, I'm using that as a juxtaposition because it's so brazen.
We don't even need it.
But we don't need it in Charlottesville.
Right.
All we needed was police work in Charlottesville.
That's right.
We didn't need a tank. We didn't need bayonets. I didn't want anybody launching grenades at Nazis or anyone else in the middle of a crowded protest.
Look, what the reality is this is a way that the Trump administration can further appeal to police unions, which is something that they want to do. They did get a tremendous amount of support from these unions. However, what the underlying issue is, and something that everyone should be kind of irritated about, especially if you consider yourself a fiscal conservative, is the fact that we have this military surplus, right? We spend so much money and waste so much money on defense that there are all these, weapons and all these tanks and all this military gear that we decide, hey, why don't we just resell them to local police departments and just keep spending more and more money on defense? When we spend money on defense, it goes to weapons manufacturers, private contractors. It has very little to do with actually keeping Americans safe. That surplus exists for a reason. We waste money on that surplus for a reason, right? That's what's really going on. And then who gets to suffer from all of that? We suffer as taxpayers, and then we suffer as private citizens who might want to hold authorities accountable and go out there and practice our First Amendment right of protesting. We're the ones that suffer.
And one of the reasons that they gave for rolling this military goods going into the cops' hands is because it makes it look like you're an occupying force. And you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be policing the community on behalf of the community that you serve. You're not supposed to occupy them. It puts you in the wrong mindset. You know what puts you in the wrong mindset? Having a grenade launcher. If you're a cop, what are you going to use that for? Can you imagine any scenario where, and they almost always use this for protests, where you would use a grenade launcher? Let's say you got guys holed up in a crack house, right? What are you gonna do? Let's launch an RPG to the crack house? That's insane. Even in the worst of situations. Oh, we got a guy who was shooting at people and he's holed up in a cabin in the woods. Really? You're gonna blow him out of the woods? You're gonna throw a couple of RPGs into the cabin? No, that's insane. America is not supposed to be a war zone. And they're turning it into a war zone. I know it's anachronistic and bizarre, but the fact that they asked for all those bayonets, and those bayonets, thousands of them went across the country, just goes you the sense of absurdity and the insanity of this. Who are we going to bayonet in America? When are we doing a bayonet charge? And who are we doing it against? No, this only helps the defense contractors, and I guess the morale of not all the cops. There's a lot of great cops, but some sick guys out there who are like, oh, if I could just bayonet someone.
Right. All right, we got to take one more break, and when we come back, we are going to show you a pretty disturbing video from Charlottesville. Someone opened fire and police did nothing about it. And then Rex Tillerson, Donald Trump, a little bit of drums. You don't want to miss it.
Drums.
Brett has a cat. Yeah. I'm moving away from the controversial stuff we were discussing prior to this going live to talking about pussy. Because it's a pussy cat.
Here's the thing, I think that cats are dumber. Everyone thinks that cats are smarter because they found a way to just like not care about you and have a home and food.
Right.
But cats are stupid, they're like children. Like cats, everything they do, it's like, cat, do you want to take a bath right now?
Yeah.
Because you're fucking gross. And they're like babies and like toddlers. We're like, no, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
I just lick it. And you're like, are you sure that's a good idea? Because I think you might get hair caught in your throat. And the cat's like, no, it's fine.
Ugh.
They're stupid. And then like they're just like babies where it's like, I pooped. And then it's like, did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here, it's fine because I bury it. Like they're idiots. They're like children. And then dogs are like husbands in sitcoms.
Why?
Where they're just like, listen, when do we eat? And I love you for that. Also, I'm gonna try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
That's so true. Although Charlie never tries to hump me, always tries to hump Christian. But you know what?
What are you jealous by that?
No, I'm not jealous. I just think it's interesting because I think Charlie might be a gay dog and I love him no matter what.
Hey, what's up?
Aaron, what do you like better? The rabies or the rabies? Go.
Hey guys, welcome to TYT Sports. Ben Mankiewicz here, and we have a new guest to introduce. Delighted to do this. Francis Maxwell is our World Cup expert. We're going to start here with Group A, which is Brazil, Croatia, Mexico.
Brazil or Croatia are going to win this group. Unless weather hit Croatia, then maybe Cameroon. Mexico has no chance.
You know who has no chance? The US. Literally no chance.
Well, not sure if you're trying to piss me off or something, but not cool.
What I told you about Mexico was a fact. What you were talking about US was simply an opinion. USA has no chance, that's a fact.
Of course they don't. I might have been mistaken because in football, there's always a chance, even when there's no chance.
Like I said, what you gave was an opinion. What I gave you was a fact.
Calm the assholeness down. Like I said, in football, there are no facts about results. No one counted on Real when they blasted Bayern 5-0. No one counted when Brazil lost to Mexico in the Olympics. I was trying to be polite, but unfortunately, your bitchness got the better of you.
Just like I said, the U.S. has no chance.
Personally, I'm rooting for Germany. I just think maybe Brazil and Spain will fight.
Screw your BS. We all know it's Crimea for the win.
Faster than whoever. Well, and you can see it within the first 2 minutes. You're like, these guys are just, they're fast.
Absolutely, I agree. And they've always had that speed about them. It's always been about speed, but it's also been about...
All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm going to read you a YouTube super chat that doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to read it to you for a reason. J.R. McLaughlin writes in, for Johnny Pie's beard. Okay, don't know what that means.
Oh, John's back.
But that's why I brought it up. So John came all the way back from north of the wall to do the Game of Thrones review last night. So do the brother a favor and check it out. Okay, whether you're a member and you can see it for members, because you can get the network shows. So YouTube, tytnetwork.com/join. And by the way, we'll do, I'm gonna go over my draft weekend. I was in New York, New Jersey area this weekend, and my celebration of America.
All right.
Okay, that's in the post game for the members. And then, or just go to youtube.com/whattheflickshow to watch John and Matt and others do the review, including Brett, who's gonna come here in a second, because it was an amazing, epic Game of Thrones episode last night.
It was.
Michael Napier wrote in, all those surplus military toys will do well with all this social unrest. That's exactly what we're afraid of. Okay, let me just tell you two more quick things about Arpaio, and then we're gonna move on to the other stories, okay? So two more notes on Sheriff Arpaio. One is that Donald Trump has not even considered pardoning anyone else. Of course, he didn't go through regular procedure in pardoning Sheriff Joe Arpaio in Maricopa County. We told you that the Justice Department said that he had committed the worst racial profiling in United States history. He had clearly defied a court order, but he got a pardon without going through any of the regular process, including the adjudication of his sentence. Normally you have to have a sentence before you're pardoned, but now USA Today pointing out that Trump has yet to appoint a new pardon attorney. He has not outlined his pardon policy for the Justice Department. And according to the Office of the Pardon Attorney, there are 376 people who have applied for pardons since Trump took office. The president has not taken action on any of them. So not only has he left those guys without any word at all, he hasn't appointed anyone. He hasn't set any guidelines because he doesn't care about the rule of law. He doesn't care about doing things right. He doesn't care about being president and all the heavy responsibility that comes with that. He's like, Joe, I like Joe. Joe's an ally of mine. He set up what he called concentration camps Arpaio said that, it's on tape, for Latinos. Oh, I like that, I don't like Latinos, right? And if I pardon him, maybe I get to pardon the criminal actions of my own administration.
You know, Arpaio also, in the early 2000s, entrapped a teenager to make it seem as though that teenager had an assassination plot against him. That teenager lost 4 years of his life until the case finally went to trial and the jury found him not guilty because his lawyers proved that he was entrapped, okay? By the way, again, the fine people of Maricopa County ended up paying $1.1 million in that case. Arpaio is obsessed with publicity. He literally took 4 years of that teenager's life because he had to spend time in prison awaiting his trial. I mean, he's just a bad guy. And time again, he is proven to be a bad guy, but Trump doesn't care. I don't even know if Trump really knows, the extent to which Arpaio refused to follow the law. But, in regard to all those other people who have applied for pardons, yeah, Trump doesn't care. In the case of Arpaio, it's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You know, Arpaio spent resources from the county in order to send one of his deputies to Hawaii during the Obama administration to prove that Obama was not a US citizen, that he wasn't born in the United States.
What is the sheriff of Maricopa County in the middle of Arizona doing sending investigators to Hawaii? That has nothing to do with his job. But Trump sees that and he's like, oh, you hate Obama for being black? I hate Obama for being black. You like to put Latinos in concentration camps? That's what I like too. So last thing on this, when they asked him, Jesus Christ, okay, you did this without any procedure at all. But why did you bury it in the middle of Friday night news, in the middle of the hurricane? You claim that you're fine with it, you're proud of it and stuff, so why did you try to bury the news? Why didn't you do it earlier in the week, etc.? He said, quote, Trump just said this earlier today. He said, I assumed the ratings would be far higher than they would be normally because the hurricane was just starting. So instead of worrying about the lives lost in the hurricane, and he's not in the Situation Room, showed you a picture earlier, he's sitting in the Camp David all by himself, phoning it in. He's like, oh, he's worried about the ratings that Hurricane Harvey creates, which will then give him more coverage for pardoning his buddy. That's how this monster thinks. Okay.
All right, moving on to some other news. The ACLU has just released video showing a neo-Nazi at the Charlottesville, Virginia hate rally firing a weapon at a group of counter-protesters. Now, they didn't want to release this footage until the authorities had seen it and identified the individual and had him in custody. But now that we can see it, it'll give you a sense of, some of the violence that could be seen on the neo-Nazi side. Take a look.
Gunshot.
What's amazing about that video, if you pay very close attention, you can see cops behind the barricade about 10 feet away, and there was no reaction from them whatsoever. In fact, let's take a look at the next video. Again, pay close attention toward the back where you can see the police officials. That is unbelievable. He literally opened fire. There was no reaction from the cops. Now, the cops claim, or a spokesperson for the cops claim, no. I mean, everybody relax. They just didn't hear what happened. They didn't hear a gunshot 10 feet away. Now, police did finally arrest the individual who opened fire. It's Richard Wilson Preston in connection to the incident. Wilson was charged with discharging a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school during the so-called Unite the Right rally on August 12th. He is in custody in Maryland.
All right, listen. So on the cops' reactions, I remember tanks in the streets in Ferguson, but no, now if you're a right winger, you just shoot people, whatever. Now, but I'm actually, like, I understand people's concern about that. I don't want to say I'm less concerned about that. I find it slightly more credible that in that atmosphere they might not have heard it. Okay, I'm giving you, I'm trying to be as fair as humanly possible. Okay, so maybe they didn't hear that gunshot. That maybe, I mean, there's mayhem, etc. Although the cops look pretty calm. Okay, but to me the bigger problem is discharging a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school. That's the biggest charge he got.
What about attempted murder?
He fired right at the guy. He fired. Why not attempted murder? Why are we so incredibly soft on right-wing terrorists? Oh, wait a minute, Cenk, you can't call the guy a terrorist. The guy's he says he's the Imperial Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. The guy he was shooting at was a black guy. He's like, oh, that guy's black. Here, I'll just shoot at him in the middle of the things. Oh, discharging a firearm as if he was like shooting at some cans in the woods, but it happened to be in a school district. It makes it seem like it was like an accidental crime. He shot at a dude. He could have easily killed him or anyone else in that crowd. Did you see how busy that crowd was? In the middle of that, you take a shot? How is that not attempted murder?
It's incredible. It's incredible that that's not attempted murder. People have gotten, harsher treatment simply for brandishing a weapon. And in this case, he shot a weapon. Luckily, he didn't kill anyone, but he attempted to. And he gets a much lesser charge than what he deserves. So you're right. I mean, it's the double standard that we see here is pretty incredible. But I do want to give the ACLU a lot of credit because they've been, pouring through any and all surveillance, including body cameras, in order to figure out who some of the perpetrators of the violence are, and they're making sure that those individuals get arrested. Also, keep in mind that police arrested Daniel Patrick Borden, who's 18, and Alex Michael Ramos, who's 33, in connection with the beating of DeAndre Harris. He's the black 20-year-old who was protesting white supremacy at that rally. And he was beaten. He was beaten
with metal poles.
Yes, with metal poles. To give you more details, a mob of white supremacists beat him with metal poles in a parking lot near police headquarters during the rally, leaving him bloodied with a broken wrist, deep gashes to the head, and a chipped tooth. Part of the reason why they were able to catch the perpetrators is because Sean King offered a reward for any information finding the suspects, and they did find the suspects.
Look, I think a world of credit goes to Sean King for that. This is the right way to handle things. There was a crime committed. It's on tape. We showed it to you earlier. It's clear as day. 5 guys on one guy. They beat him with a metal pole. He's not armed. He's not doing anything wrong. He got 10 staples to the head, let alone all the other injuries that Anna listed for you. And Sean said, look, these guys are wanted. They're wanted criminals. So if you know who they are, help the police. So that's Sean King doing a great job, and now 2 of them have been found. I'm sure that the right wing will be like, oh, now you're outing people who are wanted by the cops. You should be helping protect people who are wanted by the police,
what
right?
about law and order?
Yes, so, and look, again, and I said it in the original video we did about it, I'm less tough on the cops for having the headquarters nearby. There was a gigantic protest, the cops are in the streets. It's not a normal situation where it's around the corner from the police headquarters and there's nothing else going on. There was some degree of mayhem going on. But all we're asking for is to do proper policing and bring people to justice afterwards. It's not too much to ask for. I mean, look, they shoot unarmed black guys all the time, and disproportionately so. It's not anecdotal. We've shown you the statistics and the evidence on it. And they get shot and killed and they don't even have a gun. This Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan had a gun, used a gun in the middle of a crowded protest, shot it directly at someone. Luckily he missed, and somehow it's like a minor offense. Did they go after him? No. Did they shoot him? No. Did they take any action? And part of the reason, let's be honest, it's because the right wing uses weapons. So ironically, they call black protesters thugs, but they're unarmed, so they get crushed. And the right-wingers come armed to the teeth. And so the cops are like, I mean, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? Or I rush in there, I could harm myself. The Bundy guys, these Nazi guys, the KKK guys, they all come in with heavy weaponry and the cops get intimidated. Wait, I thought you guys were brave. I thought the whole thing was that you were supposed to, you got a hard job. Well, that's a hard job. Go arrest that guy and then actually bring him to justice. Don't give me some nonsense about firing discharging a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school or a farm. Yeah. Attempted murder.
Absolutely, and it is ironic that whenever it comes to those who are painted as the violent, dangerous thugs, it's never, the neo-Nazis that are heavily armed and, calling for, ethnic cleansing in America. It's always the minorities that are the thugs that we need to watch out for. It's amazing. All right, one final story in hour one. There have been some rumors indicating that Rex Tillerson and Donald Trump haven't been getting along. There's a little bit of saltiness in the situation. And recently, Rex Tillerson was speaking to Fox News's Chris Wallace, and he kind of added a little more fuel to those rumors. Take a look.
Does that make it harder for you to push American values around the world when some foreign leaders question the president's values?
Chris, we express America's values from the State Department. We represent the American people. We represent America's values.
When the president gets into the kind of controversy he does and the UN committee responds the way it does, it seems to say they begin to doubt whether we're living those values.
I don't believe anyone doubts the American people's values or the commitment of the American government or the government's agencies to advancing those values and defending those values.
And the president's values?
And the president speaks for himself, Chris.
Are you separating yourself from that, sir?
I've made my own comments as to our values as well in a speech I gave to the State Department this past week.
Is Rex Tillerson the new Salt Bae? Because that's what it seems like. He's just like, there you go, there you go, there you go, Trump.
Yeah.
Fucking salt for you.
Yeah. So now Rex Tillerson is nobody's idea of a progressive.
No.
No, the former CEO of ExxonMobil. Wild hypocrisy on many counts. Remember, he's massively in favor of fracking. They start to do fracking in the town where he has his mansion. And he's like, whoa, not in my backyard. So I got no love for Rex Tillerson. But Donald Trump is such a monster, and his reaction to the Charlottesville situation was so racist that massively right-wing Rex Tillerson's like walking out of the room backwards, like, whoa, I don't want anything to do with that, man. That is him saying, I don't share the president's values.
Insane. Okay, so also the leaks from the White House continue, and they're still speaking to the media. And apparently it's been reported that one time recently after Trump had returned from a meeting on Afghanistan, a source recalled Trump saying, Rex just doesn't get it. He's totally establishment in his thinking.
Okay, now, Axios has a longer story about this, and that was one of the quotes in the story. There's three different possibilities as to the rift. Let me explain what parts make sense and what doesn't. So one is they're saying that Tillerson hasn't put time into to build goodwill with the foreign policy community in Washington, and that he has destroyed morale at the State Department. You think Trump's concerned that he didn't do his job right and didn't fill enough positions? That is not the answer. Trump is the height of incompetence. He's not going to turn around to Tillerson and be like, wait a minute, have you gotten more diplomats in place yet? That's not Donald Trump. That might be other people inside his administration who are concerned about that, but that's not his bone to pick with Rex Tillerson. Another thing that is overlooked, and it's in the Axios piece, but should be more highlighted, is their disagreement in places like Qatar and Venezuela. Trump has his own personal financial dealings in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is beefing with Qatar. So Trump has said very aggressive things against the government of Qatar. Rex Tillerson is an oil guy. He was the CEO of ExxonMobil. Qatar has a lot of natural gas. Venezuela has a lot of oil. So he's saying, maybe we shouldn't do sanctions on Qatar, and maybe we shouldn't even do sanctions on Venezuela, because ExxonMobil doesn't like sanctions. In fact, that's the whole point of Rex Tillerson coming to be Secretary of State. He wanted to lift the sanctions from Russia, which cost ExxonMobil $500 billion deal. So that is one of the real disagreements. Now, the other thing is what you just saw out there, right? And Trump has been leaking against Tillerson, and that's Tillerson saying both this guy is too monstrous to defend on Charlottesville, and two, if you're going to dig at me, I'm going to dig at you. I mean, this was the CEO of, at the time, for a while, the #1 company in the world. He's not used to backing down. So they're butting heads in public here. yet another administration official which Trump is publicly throwing under a bus.
Right. Look, the infighting within the White House has been chaotic, to say the least. I mean, I don't think it's unprecedented. I know that infighting has happened before, but not to this extent. And so many people have already been fired or forced to resign. There's one other small component that I wanted to bring up because it's not only important for the State Department, I think it's important for the safety of the country. So Republicans keep arguing like, oh yeah, we're gonna keep the country safe. We're all about national security. The State Department is obviously critical when it comes to protecting the country and securing our national security. However, Donald Trump has still failed to name appointments for the State Department, and it's disastrous. So just to give you an idea, as of June 5th of this year, Donald Trump had only nominated 14 people, okay? And you might be thinking, and only about 7 of them, I believe, were confirmed. You might be thinking, oh, what's the big deal? Is that really that bad? It is bad. Just to give you an idea, in the Obama administration, around the same time, Obama had already nominated 37 people. There are so many unfilled positions within the State Department because of Donald Trump's incompetence, and Rex Tillerson is the Secretary of State. So do I think that's the primary reason for their rift? No, but I'm sure it's not making the situation any better.
Well, look, on that one, they're both guilty. They both have no interest in diplomacy. Rex Tillerson didn't know word one about it. He was running an oil company.
Right.
So they're like, he's not filling it with any diplomats. He doesn't know any diplomats. Right, I know he's supposed to do hard work. Also not used to that either, being a cushy executive position. Trump doesn't want to do any hard work. He doesn't believe in diplomacy. That's the one thing they actually agree on. Who cares about the State Department? The things they don't agree on is Venezuela, Qatar, and the rest. So understand why they're actually fighting.
Yeah.
And it certainly doesn't have to do with, no, he's more incompetent than I am. They're perfectly happy with the incompetence.
We'll see.
Okay, all right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, I got a story wrong. I didn't get it wrong. I reported it as the media had it that day, but I should have done more due diligence, or I should have been more reserved in telling that story on day one because it sounded fishy. I should have used my Mankiewicz antenna on that one. I'm gonna correct the record when we come back. I want you guys to know the full story.
Hey Elle, I can't remember. Is there a specific blur we use for Miley Cyrus's butthole? Is it like a Gaussian or a mosaic or a compound?
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys?
Okay, not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bae.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got him here.
You need more accessories. Way more accessories.
I don't know where to put it.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bae, not sleep bae.
More sexy too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with? No. We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't.
For your gay audience, man.
Yeah, the gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do?
You haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Damn, that looks good on you, dude.
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do we have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the post articles weren't doing well. I wasn't.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 100,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah, blah, blah social issue. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, dab.
Okay, I'll dab.
There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it. So many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. But it helps the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing without us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Dude, just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
Hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag woke bay. Please follow me. Please.
You have in common with your daughter?
I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that to her.
He said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor? Need this in an hour. But you're an editor too. Fuck you.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Brett Ehrlich. What is this? What's up, Brett?
It's great.
And Anna Kasparian. Hey, Brett, nice job on the Game of Thrones review last night.
Thank you.
Wasn't that amazeballs?
Oh, it's so good. The thing is, like, there's a lot of dark scenes, and we were watching it here with the backlight on, so I had to stand up to see a lot of the scenes, so it was just shots of my crotch.
I noticed that. I found that alluring. Because I was watching from home.
I heard you enjoyed it and then went on Facebook Live to do your own thing.
Yeah, we broke records there on Facebook.com/whattheflick for that channel. We had you should go subscribe to that channel, but we got like 92,000 people watching that live.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so God bless, God bless. Yeah. All right, let me give you a couple of tweets here. Jimmy Brandon says, Philando Castile was shot and killed for just saying he had a gun. This man, the KKK guy in the rally, openly shot into a crowd at a black man. One side, guy gets killed. The other side, they don't even investigate in the beginning. And if you notice, there was a guy in the crowd going, he just shot at someone. He just shot at someone.
Yeah.
And still there's no action. Gabby asks, is there anyone in the Trump administration that he gets along with anymore? He's burned nearly every bridge with them and Congress. Let's hope to God that catches up with him. All right, Brett has an important correction on a story I bungled. No, I'm kidding, go ahead.
So there's an update. There has been more information that has come out. Reported last week, I believe it was, that Joshua Witt, who you can see here in this photo, who made a complaint that he was stabbed because someone in the place where he was, his story was that they went up to him and told him he was looked like a Nazi, and so they stabbed him. You may have seen the graphic photo that he uploaded of himself. We're gonna go with a quote. Okay, so there he is, Joshua Witt. Next is the graphic photo that he showed. Lols, apparently I look like a neo-Nazi, so I get stabbed at. Now, that is his photo. According to a report, Witt had originally said that on August 16, he was exiting his car outside a Steak and Shake restaurant when someone approached him and asked if he was a neo-Nazi and went to stab him. He claimed he was slashed on the hand when shielding himself, and the suspect ran away. Now, the police found some problems with his stories. They found someone that fit the description of his quote assailant, but they had doubts that that was actually someone who participated in any incident. They also couldn't find video of the incident he mentioned. However, according to the report, police turned up video from a nearby sporting goods store, which depicted Witt buying a knife. Officials said investigators asked him about this on Thursday, and he admitted that he cut himself by mistake while in his parked car in front of the store, the statement said. So there you go, there's your update.
I don't understand how he cut himself in a parked car. Like he wasn't chopping onions or something.
Yeah, no. So first of all, let me just say that I reported on this story when I probably should not have. So my bad there, guys, and I want to let you know. And the reason I say that is I was reporting what others were reporting, and I believe, let me leave out the name of the publication that we mainly relied on there. But that's what the police reports were, so it's not their fault, it's not necessarily my fault. Except for the fact that in the production meeting, we did have a discussion about this story, and some of the other folks in the meeting said, this doesn't look right? Let's hold off on this. But one of the reasons I did it is because if it was really a leftist who was attacking a guy because he thought he looked like a Nazi, I don't want to downplay leftist violence. And there's some today from Antifa at Berkeley, and it drives me crazy, and it is just as morally repugnant. Yes, the other side, it has fascists and Nazis. That doesn't mean we should sink to their level. It means we should fight back with every ounce of our energy politically and morally in every way, shape, and possible. And I'm not one to go soft, but violence is a terrible idea. It's a moral idea, it's counterproductive. That's why I can't cover that story when it appeared that it was someone who was attacking someone who's right wing. But the rest of the team was right that there was something fishy about that story. And every once in a while, and in this case, it wasn't covered by right wing sites. It was covered by mainstream news sites, okay? But every once in a while, the right wing will get a story and they'll go nuts over it. Oh, well, how come the press isn't covering this, and this is amazing, and this is outrageous? And then you'll find out, no, it was not at all. And so in this case, I think it's just one particular dude who was looking for attention. Look, we don't know with 100% certainty. We know the facts that Brett just gave you. But like Anna said, it doesn't look like he was chopping onions in his car. He went and bought a knife right beforehand, that we do know. It seems like he cut himself to get attention.
Well, there's multiple ways to interpret the events. One is that he went and was like, oh, before I get my Steak and Shake, let's make up a crazy story and play it out. So he goes and he gets it, cuts his hand, does the photo, and it's a nefarious thing. The other one is he accidentally cut himself, and then afterwards he posts this this thing he thought was funny, like now I'm a Nazi, but then he runs with it. Either way, I think the takeaway is violence isn't good. And whether this was the right story to report on or not, or it was reported too early or too late, I think the concern that violence undercuts any claims towards some kind of moral authority is worth bringing up.
Right.
It's unfortunate that the facts of the case change from one day to another, but I think the priority being making sure that violence isn't something that we do because you lose authority after it is a good point to make.
Absolutely, I agree. And it's also an injustice that Steak and Shake doesn't exist in Los Angeles.
It does, it will.
It's soon.
Oh, awesome.
Steak and Shake, there's one in
injustice.
Torrance. There's also going to be one pretty soon at the Los Angeles International Airport.
Awesome.
So you don't have to cut yourself to get it.
You have to fly out of Terminal 3, I believe it is.
Yeah, but one other reason why that it was in the news and maybe that put it into this guy's head and made me cover the story was because we just done the story about how Macklemore had a quote unquote Nazi haircut. That's what people were accusing him of. He had no intention of cutting his hair that way. And by the way, ever since we did that story, I'm looking around in the streets. A lot of people have the same exact haircut. I don't think that's a Nazi haircut. That's what I was saying at the time. And Macklemore had changed his haircut anyway. So bring it down with the Nazi haircut nonsense, okay?
Yeah.
You know how you can tell somebody's Nazi? If they're wearing or have a tattoo of a swastika, okay? Otherwise, don't make assumptions. And in the case of Joshua Witt, don't do any self-violence either, and be a jackass and try to get attention, because sometimes the cops do good work. They find out, and then you go to jail.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on to a different story. There is an image floating around that has kind of come to define people learning about the Houston hurricane, Hurricane Harvey. Here it is. This is a photo you may have seen. It's people at La Vida Bella Assisted Living Center in Dickinson, Tennessee. And in case you can't see it there is water covering everything. And there are senior citizens sitting in water. If you're wondering how it came to be, what it is of that senior center run by Timothy McIntosh's mother. He received that photo from her and then didn't hear anything from her after that, according to Time magazine. And then following that, he tweeted it, and there were thousands of people who retweeted it. And within a very short time, thankfully, folks came to the aid. According to the report in Time, emergency officials rescued 18 people, including 15 nursing home residents from La Vida Bella Sunday afternoon. Dickinson Emergency Management Coordinator David Popoff told the Galveston County Daily News, "We were airlifting grandmothers and grandfathers," Popoff told the Daily News, and the McIntoshes reached out to tell people they were grateful for the show of support, saying, "We were very fortunate and are thankful for all the retweets, media contacts, and especially the promptness of Galveston Emergency Services, along with the National Guard. Altogether, they saved many lives today." Very touching story.
I oftentimes complain about how terrible Twitter is and how detrimental social media can be. But here's one of the few cases where it literally saved lives. And looking at that photo, I mean, if you really focus on every single person for a minute in that photo, it's kind of amazing, because it almost seems as though they're just living their lives and they're not like submerged in water, almost completely submerged in water. And I'm so happy that people stepped up and did something about this. I'm glad that the photo went viral and that no one died as a result of that flood in that assistance living center. It's just, oh my God, it's terrifying to me to think of family members who might be in that condition and might not get the help that they need to survive.
So look, we do commentary on these stories, so I'm going to do commentary. So I need you to calm down, okay? It is going to be somewhat political, and so the issue is government, because there's talking points from the right that government is always bad. Big government is bad by definition, and my counter to that is, well, doesn't it depend? What is the government doing? If the government is invading a country that didn't invade us, you're right. Big government is terrible. If it's getting inside our uterus, you're right. It's horrific. It shouldn't get between us and our doctor. Sometimes conservatives don't agree with that. But if it's going to the rescue of these poor women and other people in that assisted living center, it's wonderful. So it's not to say that that proves that government is great on everything. No, we're not as black and white as the right wing. We're not as simplistic as the right wing. It depends. Sometimes government does wonderful things, sometimes it does horrific things. So let's use our mind and our judgment to figure out which is which. If we had had more government action, maybe we wouldn't have had as much climate change and this storms would not have been as severe and they wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place. If we had followed through on some of the regulations that Obama put into place to prevent further flooding in cities like Houston, maybe the flooding wouldn't have been as bad. So, and certainly I hope we can all agree that rescuing people in need is a core government job. So, and look, on the other hand, for Democrats who sometimes make the same mistake and go, no, government's always great. No, when the politicians are legally bribed by their donors, it's not great. So let's use our minds and our judgment to figure out how much government we need. And in this case, thank God somebody showed up.
Yeah, I mean, these are the weirdest feelings to go through because you see such devastation across the board. Houston is, I mean, that's one of my greatest fears, is a flat space in a flood. And Houston is a flood prone district, bayous, ditches, and it is there. I mean, Elle, one of our editors is from Houston, showed me a photo today of a giant freeway that looked like a river. And it looked like a river because there was a little bridge about this high over the water, and it looked like you could take a nice little walk over the river. No, that was a freeway, and that bridge is supposed to be tall enough so you could drive a semi-truck underneath it. It is terrifying.
Right.
And then you see these grandparents who are in an assisted living center that they themselves need assistance. It was great to see that they got out of there, but I mean that's a nightmare to me.
So I wanted to make this point when we did the original story about the hurricane, but I didn't get an opportunity, so I wanted to make that point now. Look, there's also an issue of how infrastructure is built in the Houston area. There's this great writer for the Houston Chronicle, his name escapes me at the moment, but he talked about how right now there is overdevelopment in the Houston area, which is flood prone, that unfortunately makes floods worse. And the reason why is because there are, grassy areas, prairies, things like that are better at absorbing the water. And now there's so much overdevelopment, people are building concrete over it. And obviously concrete doesn't absorb the water. And so it makes the flooding worse. And so instead of addressing that, there are lawmakers in the state that continue to deregulate certain zoning laws that lead to this kind of situation getting worse. And so it's something that everyone should keep in mind. It's not, climate change is exacerbating the issue, absolutely. The unwillingness to build infrastructure that could withstand this type of flooding is a problem. And then this type of infrastructure that actually makes the flooding worse is a problem.
So I remember when Inconvenient Truth came out over a decade ago, and they showed the possibility that some major American cities would be underwater, and conservatives laughed, like, that's ridiculous, they're not gonna be underwater. Al Gore, you're nuts. Well, one of them was particularly about the World Trade Center, and in an Inconvenient sequel that just came out, they showed in one particular flood, the World Trade Center memorial was underwater. Now Houston, the 4th largest city in the country, underwater. And it's happened to time and time again in New Orleans, Louisiana. There was the biggest flood they'd ever seen last year. This is now being called a 500-year flood. I'm getting to think it doesn't happen every 500 years. It happens very, very often and repeatedly because the storms are getting worse because of climate change. It turns out the scientists were right all along. Big surprise.
All right, let's move on. Taylor Swift. Does everyone feel okay with that?
I feel like we should take a break before Taylor Swift.
That's a good thing because everyone needs a quick rest to gird up their loins for analyzing the Taylor Swift video because it might be the single most in-depth, highly image-laden video of our time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's got controversy, and actually it's one of my favorite stories today. So yes. Let's come back and tell you what the controversy is, and it has a little bit of a political angle to it too. And is she guilty or not guilty? We'll explain. I got a bunch of things to go through. No Republican would have ever voted for Bernie. He would have done worse than Hillary Clinton.
They're so miserable. All right, I'm gonna stop myself before I say things that are offensive.
If I ran for office, and that would be a trippy day, right? I'd break even more rules than Trump. If I had all the money in the world, I would enjoy that.
We have a great show for you. Steve's answer is C. Dave's is A, and the correct answer is, of course, B. You guys are the worst. Here's the story, and it's not funny. Steve is over too.
It seems just comically unfair and ridiculous. The Democratic Party just sucks right now. It just sucks because it doesn't know what it stands for.
We should probably wrap it up.
Do you trust the establishment media?
The United States economy has never been better. Monetary policy is spectacular.
Everybody thought Jamie Dimon was the king of Wall Street last week. Well, it might be Ken Lewis now. He takes the crown. The best sales force out there is Merrill Lynch, and now it goes to BofA. It's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. Buying opportunity. I do think this is a buying opportunity. We're going to see a stabilization and just a tremendous snapback.
The rally will be jaw-dropping.
The Occupy Wall Street movement is not a spontaneous protest against economic inequality.
This is what we mean by the establishment press.
It is a well-thought-out campaign.
To bring down the infrastructure of this country.
The
embarrassment is that I'm given credibility in this world because of the disappointment that the public has in what the news media does.
I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Committee, and I've learned a little bit about the cost of war. What the president is trying to do, and I agree with him, is to do everything that we can without going to war.
So what do you say to your critics? I'm talking about Democratic critics who say, you know what, he's really just a socialist pacifist.
I very rarely read in any coverage of Bernie that he's a socialist.
Bernie Sanders is a socialist, for God's sake.
Most analysts are saying that Hillary Clinton's going to win in a landslide.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
I've got Trump at 279, 259.
Wait a minute. No.
I know you don't believe that. We're not going to be polite anymore. You know what we're going to do? We're going to fight back.
Fight for a free and independent media. We're done with politeness. We fight back. We are going to put together the best investigative reporting team in the country. You like Jordan Chariton in the field, challenging Democrats? He's the one that took down Donald Brazil. Thank God for that.
Give me 10 Jordan Charitons. Look at the damage I could do.
TYT will give you the 4 horsemen.
And we will let them gallop. Help unleash real journalism in the country.
We don't need anybody else anymore but you guys. TYTnetwork.com/go. This is going to be amazing.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Benjamin Brett and Jimmy Rivera are our members of the day. TYTnetwork.com/join to join us, become a member. Today in the post game, I'm going to tell you about my fun, wild, crazy weekend in New Jersey, where we drafted our teams. But really, it's a story about America and my love for this country. Okay, so. We'll discuss that in the post game. I do have a couple updates for you guys real quick. Okay, so I actually wanted to, we did 2 stories earlier in the day that I've decided we need petitions on. So I want you guys to help us on this, okay? So in the case of Hurricane Harvey, I want people to be helped, but I mean people, I don't mean corporations. I certainly don't mean the oil companies that already have all these subsidies and caused a mess in the first place. So we're doing a petition on the Young Turks. What it says is no federal or local assistance should be given to oil companies to recover from Hurricane Harvey. So that is tytnetwork.com/Harvey. So I guarantee you that after everything settles down, ExxonMobil and all the other guys with their oil refineries are gonna say, well, my oil refineries were hurt. No, your oil refineries are the ones that caused this problem in the first place. We've already paid for all of your mess, and the whole world pays for it. It's about time that you bear some of the costs that you created in the first place. So not a single dollar to those oil companies that caused that mess. Sign that petition and make it incredibly powerful, incredibly clear to every legislator. We don't want our taxpayer dollars going to help those oil companies. We want it to help actual American citizens. All right, now the other issue was the one of the pardons, okay? So I want everybody to be clear on this, so we're doing a petition. I think that Sheriff Joe Arpaio being pardoned was outrageous, but if Donald Trump starts to pardon his own campaign officials and administration officials, that is clear obstruction of justice, and he should immediately be impeached. tytnetwork.com/pardon is the website here in the link, and we'll have the link down below. If Donald Trump pardons anyone from his campaign or administration involved in the Russia investigation, he should be impeached immediately. So we're not saying impeach right now. I'm being very clear about it. But if the lawlessness that he demonstrated with Arpaio and letting him ignore court orders is now brought over to his own administration, then we do have an impeachable offense. Not that he can't do pardons, but that he is clearly obstructing justice and saying anyone who is being investigated should not work with the FBI, should not work with the courts, and I'll pardon them later. We can't have that kind of lawlessness in America. We need petitions like this to be gigantic, so you make it clear to Republicans and Democrats alike, do not tolerate him actually pardoning his own team. If he does that, that should be grounds for impeachment. Okay, now let's go on to Taylor Swift.
Finally, something important. All right. Taylor Swift just released the music video for her song "Look What You Made Me Do," and it's garnering its fair share of controversy, not just in the normal, musician circles, but also in the larger discussion, in one instance, of domestic violence. But let's first take a look at some stills from that video. It is first starts in a graveyard, and there's a lot of little images nested. This one's Nils Sjoberg. That is the alias that she used when writing a song for Rihanna and Calvin Harris. It was at the center of the reason that she and Calvin broke up. And so that's in there. She is laying the basis for all the injustices done to her. Next to her in this bed of jewels later is $1 bill. That it symbolizes the $1 that she won in the civil case against the DJ who touched her butt. And sued her for millions and millions of dollars, but instead she won the case against him in the countersuit for $1. Then it gets there's a little violent imagery. There's a line that says, "The gun was mine." You said the gun was mine, saying essentially someone framed her for something she didn't do, but there's fire coming out of her fingers. Moving on. Following the dust up with Kanye and Kim, a lot of Kanye and Kim fans called Taylor a snake. So she is surrounded by snakes who are serving her tea, which is a metaphor for gossip, ladies. Later on, this is Streamco, which she robs the vault of violently with a baseball bat. And since she's been called the cat lady, she's surrounded by those people who are now not wearing cat masks, were at one point wearing cat masks. This, she's talking how she was kind of vilified for being a money-grubbing maniac by some when she wrote an open letter to Apple telling them to pay artists instead of not pay artists during the 3-month trial period ahead of the Apple Music launch. There, she's mad. She doesn't like that. She's pointing a baseball bat at you. This is Todrick Hall, friend of Pop Trigger. He was in the video. He is wearing an I Heart Taylor Swift shirt, which was worn by Tom Hiddleston, her ex-boyfriend. This kind of setting up all the reasons that she has been victimized in the past. And she continues, you'll see another image, her on top of all the images of Taylor Swift. It's a mountain of Taylor Swifts. You'll see from a different angle her looking down at other incarnations of Taylor in the past, from the guitar-wielding country music sweet star who cried a lot to various other, like the Red album era.
I thought you were going to say Red Wedding.
Red Wedding.
This is almost like a Red Wedding of herself. Because she's killing all the old Taylor Swifts.
Yep.
And so it's fascinating imagery. It's in some ways got more symbolism than Game of Thrones. The pearls are a reference to her being criticized for liking pearls too much. So she's both going after her opponents in the media and the music industry, but also saying she's done with being I think the timid self that she used to be in some portions of her career. So it's very interesting. But since she's saying, look what you made me do, that's also leading to calls for saying that this video is encouraging domestic violence. Because that's what a lot of abusers say, look what you made me do.
Right, we have a tweet that we can throw up real quick from Justina Ireland. Her exact words are, look what you made me do is the exact phrase my dad uttered every time he would knock the shit out of me. Just not a good look.
Okay, now the song is not about domestic violence. It has to do with going after her enemies. In fact, if you read the whole song, which I did, I'm such a nerd. I didn't listen to the song. I read the song. Okay, it sounds like Arya Stark is singing it. Okay, like literally, it's like almost everything you could put into Arya Stark. Like, I'm going after my enemies. I'm going to get you one by one. I've got you on a list. I'm like, okay. So I'm curious what you guys think, because so the people who are saying, look, this happened to me, the domestic violence, and this is what they say. And it's not just anecdotal. Some people who take care of domestic violence victims say this is the most common phrase that they hear.
Right.
So I've got my thoughts on it, but what do you think, Anna?
So I don't love the title of the song. I think she could have gone in a different direction, and I hate that phrase. And it's funny because even before I knew that she was getting criticism for supposedly promoting domestic violence. When I heard the title of the song, I'm like, that's like something someone would say, right before or after they're about to abuse someone. So I didn't like the title. With that said, based on the imagery that you showed us, Brett, I don't feel like the imagery promotes violence. Maybe her doing the gun gesture with her hand can make that argument, but that was really the only thing I saw. What annoys me more than anything about this whole situation and the music video is this isn't anything new, okay? This is usually what young pop stars do when they first have a squeaky clean, like, I'm a really good girl, like, image. And then all of a sudden they grow up just a little bit and they're like, I'm so bad and edgy. I'm so bad. Look at how bad I am. I'm gonna get you. Like that, it's so played out. I know, Taylor, I know. You're very edgy, you're very upset, you're gonna come after your enemies, blah, 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 blah. It's just boring. That's more than anything, that's what I get out of it.
Fascinating, I didn't see that coming. I have a totally different opinion, but Brett.
I think Taylor is such a fascinating figure. She has done so many things incredibly well. The open letter to Apple. Open Apple is an old button on the Apple keyboard that doesn't exist anymore. But the open letter to Apple, according to Time, saved Apple Music. She called them out because they said there's gonna be a free 30-day trial or 3-month trial for folks who sign up for Apple Music. And Taylor wrote an open letter saying, so you're gonna pay everybody, right? You're gonna pay all the artists for that 3-month trial, because according to my research, you're not gonna pay them any money. And so through that, there was able to be a dialogue where small artists who are on Apple Music would get paid, albeit a reduced rate, for their music that is listened to on Apple. So she has done a lot of things, and she's been a very wily businesswoman.
I like that she went after the guy who, decided to sue her after he grabbed her butt. And then complained that he lost his job as a result of that. I'm glad. I love the way that she handled that situation. So I'm not saying she's all bad. She's just annoying sometimes when she does her standard pop star BS, and it gets under my skin.
So look, in terms of Taylor, let me quickly just go through that. I care more about the larger issue. Look, she's definitely a savvy marketing person, and so she's coming out with this video. She sues the guy before this video comes out. Hey, look, I'm standing up for other women. So now this video comes out. Come on, I've got some street cred, right? With Kanye, they have that beef back and forth where Kanye did play the tape of her giving permission to talk about him in the song because she knows that's going to generate more controversy. But then Kanye puts in about how he might sleep with her, which they didn't agree to. Blah, blah, blah. But all it does is get her more and more hype and marketing, and that's how the music industry works. And I'm with you, Anna. It reminds me of the McGregor-Mayweather fight.
Yeah.
Super annoyed by all that pre-fight, like, oh, we hate each other. We're going to say this about, oh, you're a bitch, no, you're a bitch, and all this stuff. And after the fight, they hug, and they're like, oh, that's good sportsmanship. Partly they were just faking it to get more money from you earlier, pretending to be angry at each other with God knows, you have so much of this is fake. It's so annoying. Having said that, I think the more interesting part is the people who went through domestic violence getting quote unquote triggered by that, this is where people would go, oh yeah, you're soft. Well, they went through domestic violence. They're not soft. And so for them, their reaction is perfectly normal and understandable. On the other hand, I don't think that there's anything wrong with the song. So I'm not sure how to resolve that. So she's not talking about domestic violence. She doesn't mean to trigger people who've had a bad experience with that. And we're holding her to a double standard because Dr. Dre has a song about look at what you made me do. Almost exactly the same thing from the Chronic album, right? You went and turned me back into the old me, and how he went back and was gangster. And he has a lot more in that song than a finger with fire coming out of it.
I know, but I mean, look, first of all, rappers like Dr. Dre have been criticized for their lyrics and for promoting violence and the way that they treat women. It's not like they've been treated with kid gloves, you know, in the past. So, and so while the lyrics are fine, it's weird because the song is about, you know, getting revenge on people who have wronged her. Like getting revenge how? You know what I'm saying? Like that, when you're using baseball bats and you're doing like gun gestures with your hand, that does trigger people. So I get it. I get the people that are looking at that. They don't like it.
Well, yeah, I hear you. But first of all, I had no problem with the bat, no problem with the fingers. She had like a knife that she was wielding somewhere. That
in a different video.
Yeah,
and she also blew people up in a different. Bad Blood has tons of explosions. It looks like a Michael Bay film.
But when Joe Pesci uses a bat in Goodfellas or a phone or whatever he's beating with people with, we don't go, oh, he's sending the wrong message because that's a male and he's supposed to, and it's a cool gangster movie or etc. But Dr. Dre does get the criticism. You're right about that, and now Taylor gets the criticism. So.
Right.
Yeah, look, if you pretend like you're gonna be a bad girl, then you're gonna get criticism for being a bad girl. It just comes along with the territory.
This was such a well thought out video with so many images in it, and we went through them all, and it's fantastic to watch and really like intellectually engaging to unpack. That said, the premise of look what you made me do is one where you're giving up responsibility and pinning it on someone else, and that's a weak position. Because if it's your decision, you need to come at it from a different reason. It's like, I'm out for justice. That there are lines in this that's like, I got mine and now you'll get yours, which is more of a like, if you did something wrong, something bad's gonna happen to you. But she has another line later where she says, I'll play the actress in your bad dreams or something like that. And that is more like she's moving toward the role of the villain more than she's actually going to do things that make her a villain. So I think it's more complicated than that, but I do think on its face, look what you made me do is a weak rhetorical position for anyone who's making a large statement.
Every one of you has made excellent points.
Yes.
I now have a ruling.
Bring it.
Okay. Not guilty.
Yeah.
So all it's fake. It's rhetorically bad. We do feel bad for the people that it affects negatively. But 1,000 pieces of entertainment, and this is entertainment, have talked about revenge and getting justice. And I could see Anna Kasperi make a video about what now.
I know, but that's, right? Look, I think the difference there is that's who I am. And I've been that person from day one, right? I didn't start this show. I didn't start this show like showing up with like my like ruffly white dress and like blonde hair. Like, I'm a good girl, I'm such a good girl. And then all of a sudden I show up and I'm like, I'm bad, I'm gonna get you all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just comes off as so incredibly fake. Like, just be genuine and authentic.
She's been in this since she was just a kid.
I know.
Anna,
so have I, by the way.
Since you were a baby?
Since I was 20.
She was 15 or something.
She was 16. But you know, it's possible. No, you're definitely right about the fakeness, but it is also possible that she got pissed at having constantly being attacked in the media because she's a well-known celebrity, and that we feel her pain on. So nonetheless, these are great points.
Yeah.
But you might have not heard me earlier. I ruled not guilty.
Okay, well that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Right.
She does undercut herself. She does make fun of herself quite a bit in the video too. Okay, let me go past my pages and pages of notes on my in-depth analysis, which will later serve as my PhD dissertation. Okay, how'd you watch the eclipse? Did you wear some special goggles? Did you do what I did and took every pair of sunglasses and put them in a row, hoping that would reduce it enough because you didn't have the special goggles? Or did you stare at it like President Trump? Well, some people did stuff that's even dumber than that. According to Trish Patterson at Prestige Urgent Medical Care, In San Francisco's Bay Area, she said, one of my colleagues at Moonlight here stated yesterday that they had I think it's that Moonlight here, stated yesterday that they had patients presenting at their clinic that put sunscreen on their eyeball and presented that they were having pain, and they were referred to an ophthalmologist. They put sunscreen on their eyeball. Is this the worst way to watch the eclipse?
Has anyone ever experienced sunscreen sweating into their eyeball?
Yes. Yes.
It is one of the worst feelings, and it takes forever for that burning sensation to go away, even after you wash your face with cold water. Why are people so stupid? It's painful to know that there are people that stupid.
What if it says SPF? I'm gonna go with 50 in my eyeballs.
Okay, I don't even know how you do that. Like, you're really gonna keep your eyes open and put the sunscreen there? But to be fair to them, the news kept saying, make sure you use protection when you're looking at the sun. Or
so I pulled my eyeballs out and put condoms around them. I definitely took birth control drops.
And to be fair to them, they are not blind now. So.
Oh my gosh.
I love it. There was Joey Badass as a rapper who had to cancel his some of his shows because apparently he stared at the sun too long. That was the story, whether it's a rumor or not. He definitely canceled him, and everyone was saying because he stared at the sun too much.
No, it's true, and he's now calling himself Joey Bad Eyes.
I thought you were gonna go with Joey Dumbass. Oh my God, is that the worst way to watch the eclipse? I believe it is. We just thought that. Oh, also really quickly, Nerd Alert, check it out. They all went down to, they went to Oregon to watch the eclipse, and so on Nerd Alert's channel, if you subscribe to them, you can see a bunch of clips that they put together of what the experience was really like, and I think that's really cool. So good for them.
YouTube.com/nerdalert. Okay, what's next?
All right. China has put the kibosh on anonymous comments on the internet. Mashable reports, according to the Cyberspace Administration of China, sites like social networks and discussion forums will have to verify the real identities of registered users before they can be allowed to post anything on their platforms. Comments on news stories will also have to be reviewed by the website Zhihu, I don't know how to say that, and a Quora-like discussion site has already started asking users to verify their identities with their mobile numbers, which are linked to people's identity cards. So China has made a lot of moves recently to cut down on anonymous posting and means by which people typically get around the already stringent checks that the government has on internet traffic. So what do you think?
So this is a tough one because I generally encourage people to use their real identity, and I have a proposal here for Twitter in America. But when the Chinese government does it, it takes on a different tinge. Because if you're criticizing the government, they definitely want to be able to track you. So that's why I don't want to go all the way and say that it should not be allowed for any platform as China is doing. I think that's wrong. So I think here in America, Twitter has a massive problem where you got the eggs and nobody knows who's real and who's not real. Now they go through extra effort to do the verified accounts. That's the little blue check that you see. And people think, oh, that means they're a celebrity. It actually means, no, they made sure that was an actual human being, right? But I think there should be a middle ground where you do a green check, which is at least this guy connected it to his Facebook account or any other account that gives you a sense of that he might be real. And I'm not saying get rid of anonymous comments on Twitter, God forbid. I'm just saying, give us one more layer so we have a better sense of who's who. Some people, I propose that on Twitter and they're like, oh my God, you're be Maoist Islamist. I'm like, no, you're allowed to make any comment. You're allowed to make it anonymous. You're allowed to make it hateful. You're allowed to do all the horrific things you want to do. I'm just saying that if you create a second layer, it gives some people confidence. Oh, at least this person is a real person who hates me,
and not a bot, right? Because there are bots that political campaigns will roll out in order to help them, spread whatever they want to spread.
And Democrats use bots too.
Yeah,
Correct the Record uses bots.
So I think that's an interesting proposal, but obviously keep in mind China's not doing it for that purpose. They're doing it because they don't like people who criticize the government. They don't even like people who want to investigate factories in China. There were some journalists or some investigators looking into factories that had been contracted with Ivanka Trump's company, and Some of them just got detained. Some of them went missing. And so that's something to keep in mind when stories like this come out. It's not really about making sure people identify themselves to prove that they're real.
Well, there you go. That's all the time we have on today's show.
Yeah, that is in fact absolutely right. All right, so tytnetwork.com/join to hear the post game. Plus at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to be interviewing a person who used to work at Breitbart. Ooh, drums. And for Darrell Issa, a notorious Republican. We'll see you guys there.
Bye-bye.